for having me. I'm also really grateful that Sophia already excused us for a fuzz brain that we may have. I've been here all week with Adobe, which is very cool, and this was a super exciting opportunity for me. I've been to a few creative mornings across the country as I get to travel for work. This is my first time actually not completely talking about Adobe in a really long time, so this is very exciting for me. Like she said, my name is Dene Ellis. I live in Philadelphia right now, and I grew up as a weird little homeschool nerdy kid, in case you couldn't tell by my intro. I actually am really surprised where I ended up today, and I don't know if this is relatable. My career path has taken a very strange and winding journey, and so what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is what that path has been like for me, and to tie it into the theme, it's a little cheesy, but the unexpected treasure that I found along the way, which is not at all what I thought in my entrepreneurial journey. So I actually went to school to be an elementary education teacher. I don't know if there are any teachers in the room, but it is one of the hardest, most underpaid jobs that I decided halfway through junior year was not for me. God bless all the teachers out there, they're amazing. But I also didn't want to take more classes or pay for more college, so I graduated anyway with that and decided I would figure it out later. So I was a nanny in New York City for a while, part-time. It was great, but I wasn't like fulfilling that creative part of me that always existed. And so this was in the early 2010s when everyone was starting an Etsy shop. So one of my friends was like, hey, why don't you start an Etsy shop? I knew nothing about that, did not go to business school, had no idea what I was doing, but thankfully for platforms like that and a lot of other sites now, you don't really need to know a lot. You need like a name and a thing to sell, and you can just get started. So that's what I did. My name, super creatively, is my name, Jordan's name, my first and middle name. So I went with that. And then I was like, okay, what do I want to make? I took something I knew how to do. I took a skill I had, which was sewing. I did like 4-H and learned how to sew and craft with my grandma growing up. And I took this passion I had, nerdy pop culture things, and I was like, no one's really combining those two. It's a little more popular now, but 15-ish years ago, there weren't really a lot of like females in nerd spaces. There weren't a lot of things that I felt like were for me. So I was like, cool, let's just try it and see what happens. So I made aprons. I hand sewed them all, and I made like costume aprons. So you can see I experimented with a bunch of different themes. I have like space astronauts. This was an interpretation of Belle from Beauty and the Beast. So it was like a fun way to bring something that you love into the kitchen. And it was a really fun thing that I had no idea how to do. So like I didn't get a ton of sales. I didn't really know how to run a business. I don't know if anyone else has done this, but I just like searched things as I needed to figure them out. So I was like, cool, I have to figure out shipping. I've never done that before. Let me Google it and see what the internet is telling me, or I would watch YouTube videos. So I did that for a little while. It was nice, it worked, but a couple years in I was like, okay, I really want to see if this can be something. So I invested in myself, spent the most money I had ever spent on anything, and took a business class that I paid for on my own. And it was the first time that I had connected with other humans really doing the same thing as me. I had a few friends who had Etsy shops, but it was like we had instructors, but then also had a whole community of other small business owners, other entrepreneurs in different areas of the journey. So some people who were further ahead who could teach us, and then some people doing the same thing as me. And that's the first time it clicked that I was like, oh, community is really important. Being able to ask questions of other people, being able to learn from other people, being able to share things with each other as peers instead of just like receiving information. You can teach something you've learned, you can hear how other people are doing it. That was back when like Facebook groups were huge. So I got into a lot of Facebook groups for small business owners. And so I really started learning the value of finding other people doing something similar to you, how much that can elevate everything. So on top of learning how to run a business, which would have been a great thing to learn when I started, I also learned that connecting with other people doing a similar thing to me was huge. So that was the first community, connecting with other folks in my industry. And that's also when I started learning really how to do things. So like, I had social media accounts, but I didn't really know what the strategy is, how to connect with other people, or just kind of would post things. I never really had like a strategy to the business. I didn't have repeat customers or like all the things you all probably know, setting up an email list. You can talk to the same people over and over. I started sending out things with my packages that were like, hey, tag me in pictures after you get this, so that I could see people using my products and getting to know them. And so the business really started working in a really cool way. As a part of that, I had to change what I was doing a little bit, because I was hand making everything, which I don't know if there are any hand makers here. It's really hard when you make everything by hand. So the same friend that said, hey, you should start Etsy, also said, hey, you should stop sewing everything yourself. And I learned screen printing, which was incredible. So instead of making one thing in an hour, I could make 100 things in an hour. A+ if you can pivot your business in that kind of way. It's great. But the other thing that was really cool is I started making clothing, and then people would like share really special moments wearing it. So like I had folks who would buy shirts and like bought them for all of their bridal party and sent me pictures of everyone getting ready in them, or someone wore one of my shirts taking her first baby home from the hospital. So I started being able to like be involved in people's lives in a way I never expected. Like that was not a part of running a business that I ever thought. And that also on top of like this really cool emotional side of it also became how my business really started growing. So like I started having word of mouth marketing, I started having folks sharing photos and like user generated content, and also grew an ambassador program. So that was the other thing that really clicked for me, was like not only the community of folks in my industry doing the same thing as I was doing, but also the community of my audience and my customers, and really like focusing on that instead of just as sales, focusing on that as a huge part of what I was doing. That also became the most important thing to me. Like, I was like, okay, I'm not actually passionate about screen printing. It's a really fun thing, but what I am passionate about is being able to like keep being a part of all of these stories. That's really cool. So when I was trying to figure out if I wanted to keep doing this business or not, it's like, I don't actually, like the business part isn't that exciting to me, but I want to keep it as an excuse to be able to keep doing the things I'm doing and meeting the people I'm meeting. And through this too, there was a third community that I didn't know about, which was other folks in my niche. So like not only business owners, not only customers, but other folks in my specific niche, which was like nerds. So I got to meet authors of comic books, I got to meet artists, I got to meet other influencers and folks in like that specific niche that I'm in, which then spun off into another part of my brand. I decided to start a community. So as Sophia mentioned, in the year 2018, which was a great time for print, I started a magazine. It went just as well as you thought it would. I self-published for years, made absolutely no money. Also have a podcast, because the thing that I really wanted to do was to be able to keep talking to other people. Like that's what I was the most passionate about. And it was really special for me, and a thing that I didn't expect, to essentially be able to take the businesses that I had started and use them as an excuse to do the things I really wanted to do. So if I met someone that I really wanted to continue talking to, instead of like, I had a hard time just being like, hi, I think you're cool, can we just keep talking? It was like, hey, I have a podcast. Do you want to be a guest on it? Because then I can talk to you for an hour, and then also maybe afterwards we'll be friends. Hey, I have a magazine. Can I interview you for it? Can I showcase your work in it? Can I build, like, I could then introduce everyone to each other in a really natural way. So I essentially was taking all of the parts of my business and finding ways to use them for the things I really wanted to do, which was connecting other people. And it was really special too, like Sophia mentioned, to be able to do this in a space where things like this didn't really exist. Like pop culture is a lot, or I guess nerd culture is a lot cooler now than it was when I was a kid, thanks to like the MCU and superhero movies being popular. But I think that was a big part of how that community like why it was so special to me, and I think part of why it's so strong is that a lot of us grew up not really feeling like we had a place for in a bunch of different ways. And so I think that was like one of the really strong threads that held it all together, which was when those folks find each other, like you hold on, which was really cool. So I started getting involved in other communities that I didn't know existed. There was a place called Geek Girl Brunch, very similar to this, but specifically for female nerds all over the country. So I got to do networking, very similar to the way Creative Mornings works. I met other like meetup groups. I started going to Comic-Cons, and if anyone has ever been to a Comic-Con, it's just a room full of hundreds of thousands of people doing the same things as you, meeting other business owners, meeting other folks. So I got to build this really beautiful thing. I got to support other people doing really wonderful things, speaking on panels about community building and networking, meeting other cosplayers. So that was not like the journey that I expected my business to take at all. And around this time, at like the beginning of 2020, I was like, okay, I love the community building part of this so much, and I don't actually love the other parts of running a business, like figuring out inventory and sales tax, and you can't actually run a business only doing the community part of it and not all those other things. So I had two choices. One thing that some folks do is like hire help, which is a totally wonderful thing. What I decided to do instead was pivot and look for a full-time community job. So I started looking around the beginning of 2020. As you can expect, that went great, and no hiring freezes happened that year at all. So I ended up for about a year and a half applying to, I think, over 250 jobs. And as it turned out, as most things in my life, the way that ended up working out was someone in my network had recently started working at Adobe. Was like, hey, there's a job on our community team that I think you'd be perfect for. And really thankfully 2 years ago, I got to join them. So that has been a really unexpected twist. I did not expect to end up in a corporate job at all. Had to do a lot of learning to figure out how to make that work for me. But it's been really cool to take what I've learned for myself, doing my own projects for the past 10 years and bringing that into a space. And especially with Adobe Express, which is specifically built for folks who aren't necessarily designers, who are small business owners, who are wearing 1,000 hats to make their lives easier. I was like, cool, that is exactly what I know. That is exactly what I grew up with. So it's been a really unexpected journey of going from thinking I would be a teacher to then running a business that I kind of never really intended to run, to then realizing the thing that I love so much about having a business is all the people that you get a chance to meet through that, and then being so thankful to do that full time with a company that lets me do that. And what I wanted to end with is I get to run panels. This was from San Diego Comic-Con last week. I have been really thankful to be able to run panels talking about community building and networking. Because it's Comic-Con, we call it Building Your Own Themyscira for any Wonder Woman fans. But it's basically like how to bring your community together, or how to find communities that you want and networking. And so I wanted to share some of the tips that I've learned over the past couple of years of running that. I imagine, like, because you're all here at Creative Mornings, this is something that is important to you all too. You may all be experts at this. You're like doing the first step, which is join meetup groups. That's pretty scary, but honestly, that's the thing that changed the game for me was, and there are all types of meetup groups. Obviously this is one, depending on what type of industry you're in. It's cool to get a range of like people doing the same thing as you, people doing very different things as you. But I think that's a really undervalued step for a lot of folks. And I don't think I'm speaking to anyone in this room because you're all here. But I think just not understanding the importance of actually going out and meeting other people. If there are any introverts, that can be a super scary thing. That's something we talk about a lot, especially if you're shy. My favorite trick is to bring an extrovert. I am usually the extroverted friend where I have friends who are like, hi, I want to go to this. I do not want to go alone. Do you also want to go to this? And meet everyone for me and then introduce me to them. And I always say yes. But if you are the extroverted friend, think about that. Like if you're standing next to someone that you can bring into the conversation, or if you have people in your life already that you know that like extending that invitation to them could be a game changer, or while you're out, like bringing them into conversations, doing the introductions. So that is something that I think is super valuable, whichever side of the story you're on there. The other thing is, so much is online. Like we've all grown up in a digital age, but especially after the pandemic, there are so many things online. And it's really nice to have a combination of both. So like there are virtual meetup spaces too, essentially. There are places like Discord, there are forums, there are online communities, which can also be a little less intimidating sometimes, or you can like dip your toe in the sand, try to meet a couple people first. Which is another tip, is if you can scope things out ahead of time, or if there's someone you want to meet, like for example at an event like this, if there's a speaker, or if you go to an event that has like partners that you want to meet them ahead of time, it's really nice to find them online and like start that, like start following them, start leaving comments on their things, start sharing their work, because that doesn't go unnoticed. And then it also gives you a little bit of an icebreaker. Like if you get a chance to meet someone, instead of the kind of awkward like, hi, I just wanted to meet you, you can say, hi, I've been following you for this amount of time, I really loved blank project you did, or I saw that you just posted this, and have something that you relate to there. And then it also, I think, helps both of you like feel a little less spammy. Really, no, I really know who you are, I really follow you. And then if they're paying attention, it's like, oh yeah, I recognize your name, and that's just kind of nice for both people. Similarly to that, if there's a way to show small support ahead of time, like that's a really nice icebreaker. So if you can share their posts, or if maybe they sell something that's affordable, or even like sometimes people have downloads and stuff for free, if you can start kind of like dipping your toe in that way, that's a really nice thing too. And my last tip is that if there's a community that you want and it doesn't exist yet, you can make it. That's, I think, really intimidating a lot. And there's no better time than now. We have so many resources. It doesn't cost a lot or anything necessarily. So if you are looking for a space, or like maybe you think you're the only person who wants something, you're probably not. So putting yourself out there, creating the space for other people who are looking for the same things as you, can be a really beautiful way to build that into exactly what you want it to be. So thank you all so much, and thank you for letting me be here.